Hello there, and as usual, I'm Aaron from Let's Stay Gamers, and welcome. Now, 1 or 2 weeks ago, I posted the distress call cinematic, and many of you guys asked about the terrain. They wanted to see the area around the wind farm, and just show you some of the features as well. Now, a few of these areas were built before the cinematic, and planned to be used in more cinematics in the future, and some of them were built in a recent stream. If you want some more information on the streams that I'm doing, there'll be a link down to them in the description, and they will probably just appear quite randomly, so make sure you catch them. Anyway, let's start off by looking at the wind farm itself, or the wind little fans we've got ourselves here. So we've got ourselves just a basic white shaft with our little propeller area on the top that's sloped down. Very simplistic design, and to create that cinematic, I just think it looks really beautiful when you've got that spinning sort of effect, and then you can just pan across on that landscape just like that, and that Mars sort of atmosphere really lends itself to actually having these wind farms on them. So if we go over to here, we have the first item that we actually built in the stream, and that was the crashed wrecked ship. Now there's a few things that I wanted to do about this. Since I was planning on using this map as a survival start for the cinematic itself, I wanted to make everything so it was actually usable. So if we actually have a look here, we have various areas that are actually opened. So you can see up at the front here, this is how you start to explore this ship. We have this flashing light that I was hoping would draw the player or the person who ever chooses this survival world into here. So it's just an antenna that's sparking. We've got ourselves a broken catwalk, and more importantly, we've got ourselves a refinery that the player can take apart and use to aid him on his survival. As we come further back here, we've got some wrecked crates with some extra bits of looting that I'm hoping the player can scavenge. And you're probably wondering why there's sand inside here. We came up with a good reason for this on the stream. There was a sandstorm. I know it sounds a bit suspicious, but that's how all the sand got in here. You'll just have to trust me. We've got another sparking little antenna as we work our way into the engine room, and once at the back we've got more catwalks that are broken down and a spare reactor that the player can actually break down and use. And the actual wreck of the ship is just laying here quite damaged. I've shown you how to do these wrecks before. It's quite simple, and it's just using a basic thin layer of uranium to create the actual burn effect as it's impacted. Now, in a survival sense, you might be thinking that's giving the player some free uranium, but thinking how rare that actually is, it's probably quite useful to get them going anyway. And up front here, we just got another engine that's absolutely busted, and this one's actually broken off the rest of the ship. So if we go back to the spectator camera and we go to one of the other areas, I wanted to kind of build it with 3 key points of interest, this map area, so the player would have to find different items from each to aid himself on the survival. So we've got ourselves the construction site of one of the wind farms. So this is actually just the tower part that's actually been constructed in at the moment. They've dug the ground, and of course once this construction site is actually completed, they will just put the earth back around it and secure it in place. But I wanted this to look really sort of disused, and originally I went with these sort of Star Wars-esque style huts, and I was planning on building them like this, but then I kind of felt like they're not really modern in technology, and I started adding some crates in and bits and bobs in the inside, and I just didn't feel that design. But I left them in there, maybe as a bit of a prehistoric part of the design. I also did a smaller little one just testing them out, very Star Wars-esque, but I like the idea. So then I moved on to building these more, how to describe them, as little work huts. On the doors they have a little bit of a piston that opens and closes it, and then as we walk our way down here, I'll just spawn in my legs. We actually have the work site itself that I thought would be cool to enter on a very sort of steep catwalk area down into the pit. And we've got cargo with various supplies. I think this place would be really good for some sort of horrorscape. If I could change the fog effect a little bit better in Space Engineers, I think it'd have a really horrible, eerie atmosphere about it, something that you couldn't really explain. You just with all the lines and all the shadows being cast in different areas. And then we also have the assembler here, so between here and the crash site, the player will be able to scavenge enough things to get themselves going. So over here, we have one of them hinge doors that I'm showing you. Not all the hinge doors work, because I think it'd be a bit more fun for the player to try to get inside otherwise. So there's one of the hinge work sort of doors. This one actually been recessed into the ground itself, and you can see I've tried to prop the outer area of this tunneling area up with these metal rods as well, just adding a little bit of detail. And then we've got the giant staircase that goes all the way up to the top of where they're working on at the moment. That I was debating actually not having that in at all, because it just looked like a real mess of construction and stuff. But then I thought a construction site isn't anything with about a bit of a mess of scaffolding and whatnot. So if we continue over here, we have one more feature of the field, just briefly before we go on to the final area that we were working on the stream on the other day. So we actually have the wrecked solar panel, and what someone had this great idea to do was to give a reason how this solar panel had been wrecked. And then down here we've got one of these maintenance drones that accidentally collided into the tower and then got crushed by the actual rotor itself. So talking about maintenance drones, we needed somewhere for them drones to actually come from. And then we started to work on this area is not finished yet. We need to do a bit more on this. I think there's going to be a few more areas in this not solar farm, I keep saying solar farm, wind farm. But this is actually where the maintenance drones actually come out from. So these little drones are used to repair and carry supplies around for the workers themselves. So we've got a work hut there that's been badly damaged, and these areas just need some glass in, and these will be a little habitat building for the workers to live in. Now for this area we had a lot of different ideas. Originally it was going to be somewhere where all the wind farm would actually store its power, like a power bank, you know like you see them at power plants. And then we had ideas of it being really damaged by asteroids, and there was just loads of ideas. And then eventually it came down to these little wrecked drones that we've got around here. Once again, trying not to provide the player with too much scrap metal. So we've cut down a lot of the key components and took off just air. We'll give him enough where if it comes across this area, it's worth looting, but not enough to give him like a really distinct advantage in this area. And we still need to add loot to some of this crate area as well. So that was just the overview of this survival start area that we've been working on at the moment. Anyway, I'd like to thank you guys for watching, and if you've got any more ideas for this area, other constructions, maybe some sort of facility that needs to be here, we've had ideas of military bases and other things around this wind farm, leave them in the comments below, and I will see you next time.